Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and today we're doing a radio install on this 2008 Subaru Impreza. In this install, we're going to show you how to replace the existing radio, whether it's aftermarket or factory, and install a brand new doubled-in radio. Let's get started. So the first thing that we need to do in this install is get the existing radio out. Now it's smart at this point, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and remove the negative off the battery. Also, if your radio has a disk drive in it, make sure you remove any existing disks in there, because once it's been removed, it's very difficult to get those out. First thing we need to do is remove this factory bezel up and around the radio. Now I have a flathead screwdriver as well as a panel popping tool. The bezel itself is held on with clips up and around the radio, and essentially here all you have to do is just kind of get in there. I like these bezel tools because it lowers the risk of scratching or damaging your dash here, and we just pop those clips out. Now we have quite a few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then some guiding clips there at the bottom as well. Once that's out of the way, you'll need a Phillips. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. It looks like I really only have a few. There are some that are missing, but go ahead and remove those screws that are holding in the radio. Okay, once those 4 screws are removed all the way around, pull out your radio. And again, if it's aftermarket or factory, you're going to have harnesses here. Go ahead and disconnect everything back behind the radio. Okay, so once you have the radio removed, you're going to have your main harness plugs that plugged into your radio, whether it was factory or in the aftermarket wiring harness, depending on the radio itself. You have a ground, usually your aux USB port, if applicable, as well as your main harness connector. You'll also have your antenna connection, your AM/FM. We already have an aftermarket amplifier and sub installed in this, so that's why we have RCAs hanging out, as well as a factory aux that a previous installer had put in. But other than that, we're done disassembling the dash and the radio is all pulled out. Now let's head over to the bench and get everything wired up. Now the radio we decided to go with is this AVH 2550 NEX doubled-in receiver. This is Apple Carplay and Android Auto compatible. It's newest for this current model year. And to make this radio work in the dash, we have picked up some adapters. We have our main wiring harness adapter. Now it's the Metra 70-7552 harness. And then for the dash kit, we're using the Metra 95-8902 for doubled ins. Now, depending on your trim level, you may or may not have steering wheel controls. If you do, we're using the Access ASWC1 module to retain those factory features that will work well with our Pioneer. So what we're going to do is actually get the harness plug out from our Pioneer box, and we're going to get our harness adapter and our steering wheel wiring control adapter and start prepping our wiring harness, soldering up color to color, and then we're going to get our radio mounted in our dash kit. Let's get started. Okay, so what we've done here is started stripping both ends of our Pioneer harness and our Metra harness, and we've matched most of these. About 90% of the wires are just color to color. Super easy. But we're going to go through all our wiring and what we've done just to get everything set up correctly so it all makes sense. So you saw us wire up these, and we soldered all our connections. Before we started that, we actually put these heat shrink tubes on, so as soon as these are all cool, we can move these connections up and over our solder, just so they're all protected and insulated. So you have your 4 main speaker wires, which are your whites, greens, grays, and purples. Those just essentially hook up. Each one of those colors have one with a black stripe, which is the negative. The ones to be conscientious about, there's a couple of special connections. So we'll go over those now. Your ASWC1 requires two things in addition to connecting to the steering wheel controls. This module needs power and needs ground. So power and ground on this module is red and black. So in addition to that connection, we just tied those in red and black, so this module can pull power and ground from this harness. So those are the first connections. So you can see how we've attached extra wire onto that and soldered those into two other wires out of this harness. Out of all these other ones, you're going to need your gray red and your green white. The white green just needs to be grounded as well. So I just exposed the copper wire just a little bit and then soldered onto that, and then we'll tape that connection up. It just needs to be grounded somewhere in the vehicle. And since we have a ground right here, I just separated the wire and soldered onto it, so it's grounded. This gray red wire, there's no connection here where this makes. This actually has to be connected in behind the harness in the car. So we'll show you where we make that connection in the car. Additionally, there's one other connection in the car we have to make that's not here. We have to ground another wire. Now, ASWC1, their website actually has pictures and everything, which we'll just post here in the video here so you can see what it looks like. But essentially here, the instructions walk you through step by step of what connects where to make this work. So all these extra wires aren't needed, and we cut them short and we'll tape them off. Now this aux looking cable from our steering wheel control module plugs into the WR input on the back of the Pioneer. Finally here, we just added an extra accessory wire. We're going to be running a backup camera, and we're going to use that to power the camera. So we also just tapped into the red as well. Other than that, every other color here is just color for color. You just match them all up and solder them together. We're going to do a backup camera later, so we have our purple white ready to go. We just capped it off. And then we have an amplifier, so we have an extra lead just off our blue white wire, just so we can easily hook that up. So let's go ahead and cover our connections, and then we're going to use the heat gun and shrink the tubes. Alright, once our connection's cool, what we're going to use to protect the wire just a little bit more while it's in the dash is some Tessa tape here. It also kind of matches the factory finish, as most factory or manufacturers here will wrap their harnesses and felt tape as well. So we're going to do the same just for protection and a professional look. Okay, so got everything wired up here. Wiring harness is all done, nice and pretty. We have an extra power accessory hanging off, as well as our remote turn-on wire. This is for our backup camera reverse trigger. We'll actually do a video on that, so check that out. We'll have a link in the description. This goes into the WR input on the back of the radio for steering wheel controls. This end's our ASWC1 side. This end connects into behind the harness in the car. We'll show you where to make this connection. And that's it. Harness is good to go. If you have a Bluetooth mic, be sure to run that. If you have a USB extension cable with your radio, be sure to run that as well if you want. Other than that, let's head over to the car and start getting things installed. Okay, so before we connect everything into our harness here are the special connections that you need to be aware of in case you're trying to retain steering wheel controls. So again, check out Axis's website. They'll actually have the wiring diagram for you in case you don't like this video. But pin number 14, which is this yellow, like mustard color, pin number 14 there, that needs to be grounded. So what we did is we took just a spare ground that we had, just black wire, and we stripped the wire back just so ever so slightly without breaking the connection, and we wired in that connection, and then we looped it to our main ground, which is blue with a blue stripe. So we just bridged those two together. So we need to make that connection. We have to ground our steering wheel controls, which we did. So mustard has to be grounded, which we did to the main harness. And then connection number 2 is this pin number 4. It is just kind of a brown wire. It's just above the mustard in the pin color. But that brown wire, that is what will connect to our ASWC1's gray red wire. So again, we just stripped the shielding back, and we're gonna go ahead and we put a hole through it. We're going to put this through and solder onto that connection, and then we'll tape up all those connections. And that is what we need to do for steering wheel controls. So we're going to go ahead and complete that action and show you what it looks like once done. Okay, so we made all those 3 connections. 1, 2, and 3. Mustard needs to be grounded, and then brown needs to go to our gray-red. Okay, connections have been made there. Got everything soldered on. We'll use some electrical tape, cover them up, and then we're gonna relume our harness with some Tessa tape. Okay, so that's all connected. That is done, good to go. Now, at this point, we can go ahead and install our harness to our radio and get everything back in the dash. So, let's go ahead and get our radio in. Now we've made our connections here. You saw us make our connections for our steering wheel controls. That's all done. At this time, we just need to start hooking everything up to the back of the radio. Now for the steering wheel controls, it's actually an auto program. So essentially here you'll follow the instructions. Once everything's connected, you turn on the key, make sure that your radio is working, and it pairs itself, which is super, super nice. Okay, let's do a boot up, just to make sure everything's working. Steering wheel controls are working. Volume up, volume down, source, attenuation or mute. Yep, it's working, perfect. Okay, there we are. Volume up, volume down works. Now again, if I went too quickly over the steering wheel control programming, I will make sure I throw a link down in the description with that information. Other than that, that's about it for this radio install. We're also doing a backup camera, so you want to see how we do a backup camera to this radio, go ahead and check. The description will have a link there. We'll also throw a card up above for your convenience. That's about it for this install. Thanks again for watching, you guys. We appreciate the support. If you like what you saw, smash that like button, subscribe, and we will see you in the next video.